variables, and data presentation. Please, oh, okay. Let's go question. Okay, so before we move to all this, like I just like to break my words down to just get an individual meaning of the terms first before moving to the main topic or the main discussion. So when you're talking about methodologies, you're talking about um the system, or you're talking about the procedure you use to achieve a goal, or this procedure you use to solve a problem. And in our when in one of our previous class, we've talked about economic system, and I said is how a society used to organize and distribute resources, like basically how a society distributes its goods and services or their resources. I hope we can remember that. Okay, so we have the market, we have the plant, and we have the mixed economies. But tonight I'll let us take it one after the other, not like the way everything is just together. Like we'll talk about market first, talk about market economy first, then we'll move to plant economy, then we'll move to mixed economy. I hope we are together. Okay, so yeah, it says market economy is driven by supply and demand with little government intervention. You get, and I said market economy can also be called the capitalist or free economy. The decision on production and distribution of goods and services, they are made by individual and firms. You know, when you talk about capitalism, you're talking about individuals. You get, I'm sure you must have been taught at some point, and if not, you are knowing it now. Okay, so the decision on production and distribution of goods and services are made by individuals. There's freedom of choice in terms of what to produce by entrepreneur and consumed by consumers. I hope we are together. Okay, so the market price is determined by invisible force of demand and supply. Yes, that is the amount the producer will sell its good. Yes, it's determined by the force of demand and supply. Of course, if there's excess demand over supply, there's definitely going to be increments in price. Okay, and in market economy, like it is stated here, there's little government intervention. Like the function of government intervention is able to provide security and rules to protect economic freedom you get. So the individuals do not use their powers, you know, when people are in charge of stuff, so they don't impose unnecessary pressure or exploit people unnecessarily. So that's just little government intervention that is actually involved in market economy. So yeah, in market economy characteristics and examples, it says there it's a private ownership. Yes, like I said, it's owned by individual, like basically private ownership, and it is okay. Profit motive. Yes, that's profit oriented. Competition. We have multiple buyers and sellers interact, like multiple people. It's not just like, oh, it's a monopoly market that are just one person. There are multiple buyers, there are multiple sellers, there are multiple consumers too. So example of countries that actually practice market economy, or you call it capitalism or capitalist, or you call it free economy. I hope you are just something if anyone is with us here. Is USA. What do you say? Yes. Oh, sorry. That's just my hand covering the speaker, and I didn't notice. I'm very sorry. Okay, thank you. So we have the examples of countries that practice market economy here. We have USA, we have Singapore, we have different countries. If you want to know more, you can browse. We have Canada, we have Australia, and the likes. So now we move to the second economy. We have the planned economy. So the planned economy is controlled by governments with centralized decision making. So when talking about the planned economy, you can also call it the socialist economy, or you call it centrally planned, or you call it command economy. Basically, productive resources are publicly owned, like it is owned by the government, and decision about allocation of resources are made by central government. I hope I'm speaking well now and loud. And okay, thank you. And government decide what to produce and how it should be produced in planned economy. I said planned economy can refer to as socialist. It can refer to as command economic or centrally planned. So yeah, the characteristics here. Okay, government ownership, like I said the other time, it is owned by government basically, and sorry, it's as okay, it is centrally planned, like central plan authority, limited consumer choice. When we talk about limited consumer choice, that means government focus on societal goals, like things that will benefit the society at large, not just what some set of consumers or some set of people cares about. Basically, in this kind of economy, what is more what energy and what production is more focused on is what will benefit the society at large. So that's why there's limited consumer choice. An example of countries that practice planned economy, we have North Korea and we have Cuba. Okay, so now we move to the third one. We have mixed economy. I hope we are together. Okay, so mixed economy, yeah, that's a combination of market and government control. That means it has both characteristics of of market economy and planned economy, just like the word mixed. You get. So it has both private and public ownership of product resources, and the government controls some aspect of the economy so as to prevent consumer from being exploited. Yes, just like I explained in that market economy, like that little government intervention. So in mixed economy too, there's little government intervention to protect the interest of the consumer. Okay, and some areas are left for the private sector, like the business and entrepreneurship, or we talk about the production of goods and services. They are left for the private sector, and allocation are determined by the price mechanism in private sector. I hope we are together. Okay, so let's move to the characteristics of mixed economy in our slide. Okay, so yeah, just like what I've said, coexistence of private and public sector, yes. Government intervention for social welfare. I was like, government interferes to protect consumer from being exploited. And we have examples of countries that practice it. We have France and we have India. I hope we are very clear on the type of economic system. So here is their comparison. So when you want to compare all of these three economic system in terms of efficiency, market economy comes first, because that's where we have more of private ownership. And you know that the way you treat your business, your personal business, you will not treat like you not treat government. The way you treat your own thing, you not treat our thing like that. There's this extra care, there's this extra attention that you treat your thing than you treat an item or something you call our thing. So in terms of efficiency, market economy comes first. Then we go to mixed economy where you have both the planned and the market economy, because as the capitalists they are doing their own, the government too are doing their own to balance everything up. They are doing their own to balance everything up. So sorry about that. And planned economy comes last in terms of efficiency, because basically this planned economy, government is the one in charge. People could have bad attitude to work and they could be careless about it. So the efficiency of production will definitely be low compared to other two. So when you're talking about equity, yes, planned economy comes first, yes, because there is equal distribution. I could believe that there is equal distribution of resources, because it involves both private and public. It's not just for some set of people. Everybody benefits from it. The government benefits, the individuals benefit. And then mixed economy comes next in terms of equity. Then market economy, because it is your business, private ownership, capitalism, like it is your business. Equity, before definitely think of yourself first. You're thinking of what will benefit the society. I hope all of this is making sense. And when you're talking about innovation, of course, on your home business, for your own thing, you'll be more creative. Okay, thank you. You'll be more creative, you develop things, you experiment more, you invest more. So in terms of innovation, market comes first, then mixed economy next, then we have the planned economy as the last. I hope we understand this that I just explained. So now we'll move to tools of economic analysis. So when you're talking about it, like I just have to break my subtopics down so I'll be able to understand, and when I'm communicating it to people, be able to digest it too. When you're talking about tools, you're talking about instruments. Yes, we're talking about the things that you use for economic analysis. Get so yes, okay. It is used to understand. Oh, sorry. It is used to understand and predict economic behavior. That's the tool of economic analysis, and it includes models, data, and statistical tools. When you're talking about models, you're talking about abstract representation of real world system. You're talking about, okay, for example now, um a mannequin, in a boutique is not actually, it's not the real stuff. Like you're just using it to represent, you are using to represent a real world scenario. Like you're using to represent human, you get. And aside um physical models, we have theoretical models too. We have mathematical models. I hope we are together. Hey, good news. I'm sorry for the noise. And then when we talk about data, we talk about collection of facts. Goodness, please, can you? And then we have statistical tools. So we're talking about statistical tools. We're talking about method for analyzing, e.g. time series. When you get deeper in economics, you get to know, you just know the basics. on these statistical tools. Yeah, by the time we start talking about time series, regression analysis, their calculations and their formulas to those ones. Okay, so yeah, we'll move to mathematical models in economics. So mathematical models in economics helps to simplify complex economic realities. Yes, because by the time you start taking economic stuff the way they are, of course you could get confused or you could omit some stuff. So by the time you put them in mathematical terms, it helps you break it down, make it more relatable. You get. I hope we are together. Okay. Okay, we have example here. We have the demand and oh Jesus, I'm so sorry for the name. We have the demand and supply model. So I guess you still remember the model that I gave us about demand and supply. We know the demand and supply formula that okay, um law. Demand law says the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. And that's all things being equal, that's ceteris paribus. And I remember in our first class I talked about the demand model, or I call it demand function then. And I was like QD, like your quantity demanded is A plus BP. And I was like where your B is less than zero. And I was trying to explain that okay, figures less than zero, negative figures start, because there's actually negative relationship between quantity demanded and the price of a good. I hope we are together. And for supply model, there is actually positive relationship between quantity supply and the price. Okay, so mathematical models help in okay, it helps in prediction and policy formulation. I hope we are together. And also about the demand law and supply too, I was trying to explain before I shifted. Okay, you know that the words like as I stated the law, I was like the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded, all things being equal. You see this definition, this literal interpretation of the law of demand, it only tells us the quantity of how the change the quantity of changes as price changes, but the law did not tell us the literal mean, like the words did not tell us how much it changes. But by the time we use that mathematical model, it help us know how much the price affects demand. I hope I make sense there. Okay, thank you. Okay, so our next slide we have graphical tools in economics. Graphs now, like they are visual, like they are visual representation of data. I hope that makes sense. So graphs visualize relationship between variables, and we are talking about variables. Variables are actually items, or I'll say quantities, which assume different values. When you're talking about variables, variables are not constant, they could change. And something is said to be variable, oh, the price of good is actually variable. That is, it varies. It could change. The amount you buy a cup of rice today, it's not certain that that's the same amount you buy it next week. You get. The amount you buy a bag of yam, a bag of beans today, it's not certain you're definitely getting the bag of beans same amount. You get. So it varies. You're talking about variable, or you're talking about variables. Variables aren't constant. I hope we are together. So graphs visualize relationship between variables. I hope we are together. Okay. So common types of graph, we have the line, we have the bar, we have the pie chart. You know, bar chart now. I'm sure at some point you must have come across bar charts, like depth to compare data across different group. Like your bar chart, you use bars, rectangular line like this to represent it. I hope after this class you search and try to get a pictorial definition or a pictorial knowledge of what a graph is if you don't know what a bar chart is rather. I hope you try and do that. When you're talking about pie charts is mostly cyclical, like it's circle and it shows different categories, like how they contribute to a whole, like different categories in that circle. It shows their own contribution to the whole of that circle. We get. I hope we're together. Okay, thank you. So, okay, statistical tools in economics. We have descriptive statistics. Then we have our mean, we have our median and mode. As from our basic school, we should be familiar with these three descriptive statistics. When you're talking about mean, you're talking about the average value of a set of item or of a set of number. You get whatever you are given to find the mean. That means you are looking for the average value of it. I hope I'm making sense and we're together. And we're talking about median. You're talking about the middle value of a set of number of a set of item that you're giving or are dealing with. You get so and um to get your median, you have to arrange it in order. Yes, whatever item you're looking for, the middle value, you're looking for the middle item, you're looking for the middle number, you have to arrange it in order. Is that you're arranging it in ascending order or you're arranging it in descending order? And hope you know ascending and descending order. When you're talking about ascending order, going from the lowest to the highest. And when you're talking about descending, you're talking from the highest to the lowest value. I hope we are together. So we are done arranging your items, so you are done arranging the materials you are giving. So that's how you get to pick the middle one. And if you're having even, like if you're having even digits or even figures, you pick the two numbers, then you look for the mean. You divide by two, you get. And then if it's odd number, just the one in the middle is the answer. So when you're talking about mode is the value that appears most frequently, like the one that appears more in your given data or in your given set of numbers. I hope we are together. Okay, so inferential statistics, we have the hypothesis testing and regression analysis. When you're talking about hypothesis testing, so it's a statistical method that you use to make informed decision. Basically, when you're talking about hypothesis in its own self, like the literal meaning, we are talking about educated guess. Like, yes, hypothesis should be words that we're familiar with. I hope, and if you're not familiar with it, now you know. So we are talking about hypothesis, like the educated guess that can be tested. Okay, now you know. So we are talking about hypothesis testing. So it's a statistical method you use to make informed decision about population based on your sample data. And we are talking about your analysis. Regression analysis is a statistical method that is used to establish a relationship between two or more variables. Like it tells us the effect of independent variable on dependent variable. Hey, sorry. Yes. Yes, I define what variables are. Okay, so we have different type of variables. I would have talked about it, but because we are still getting there, that's why I don't want to rush it. So let's move to the next slide. So here we have endogenous and exogenous variable. These are basically the types of variables that we have. I hope we are together. Okay, so we are talking about endogenous variables. From the word endo, at least at some point when you did biology in school, you know endo. The last time that you are preparing for work, or maybe you are still preparing for work, or when you did, you know, when you draw that orange, maybe you've studied past questions, you know that by the time you draw orange, there's this endogenous and exogenous stuff. Like when you're talking about endo, you're talking about something that is inside. When you're talking about exo, like outside. I'm just trying to give us the literal meaning of those words so that we'll be able to relate with it before we now apply it to economics. You get? I hope we are together. Okay, so when you're talking about endogenous variable, yeah, it explains, okay, variables explained within the model. Yes, like endogenous variables are those variables the value, like the value of the variables are determined within the model that is being studied, or the economic system that is being studied. It is what you are given to study, is what you are working with that will tell you that okay, maybe this quantity, oh, in this case, in this situation, maybe it's this one that is the endogenous, maybe it's the one that is influenced by this function that we are given, or there's an external factor that is influencing it, which will change it from endogenous. I hope we are together. And we're talking about exogenous. Okay, that means outside the model. Okay, so exogenous, like variables. Okay, they are taken as their factors that determine outside. Sorry, I just used my other hand for something. I hope we are together. Okay, so okay, let me give an example on this endogenous variable. Like for example, now you have this function, or you have this question, yeah, where you be like, okay, the quantity demanded, the quantity is equals to 20 minus 5p plus 0.5y or whatever. You know that that the one on the left side, like if we say okay, quantity demanded though is a function of price. I hope we can relate, like we can have a pictorial idea of what I'm saying. Like you know, when I say quantity demanded is a function of price, how you interpret that in your book is that you be like QD, you get, equals to F open bracket P. Yes, that means your QD, your quantity demanded, is depending on price. I hope we are together. That means is this price, oh, is the price that we have here that will tell us the quantity of goods, or the quantity of an item that we are going to get. Do you get? Okay, that example that I gave, or that I just said now, are we together? Yeah. Our quantity demanded, mm, is the endogenous variable in that example, because it's the one that is depending on price that is here. So in that example, our price our price could be affected by any other factor except the quantity demanded. In this case, in this example, our price can be affected. I hope I'm making sense so that I'm not talking too much. Can be affected by any other factor except quantity demanded. In this scenario, it will be affected by the weather, it will be affected by technology or any other factor. That is why the price is exogenous here. I hope we are together. So, importance of variable classification. Okay, the importance of classifying our variables to, oh, whether it's exogenous or whether it's endogenous or whether it's independent or dependent. And in that case too, our QD, our quantity demanded, and our price. In this case, from the example I gave and how I explained, if you have to say one is dependent and the other is independent, which one will you have said is the dependent and the other is independent? The one that is dependent is the quantity demanded. You get, that will be the one that will be on the y-axis if you have to draw a graph. And the one that is independent, that is not influenced by the factor of this equation, is the price, and that will be the one that will be on your x-axis. I hope I'm making sense and you're understanding. So the importance of variable classification is that it helps in building accurate models. Assume we don't just say okay, QD is equal to A plus B without a proof. You know, when I how I got to understand that my demand model very well is, I don't know. I don't know how we study individual because everybody studies differently. But the thing is, I took my time. I've heard different models, but I just felt like okay, like basically you'll be going back and forth, you'll be going between demand and supply, demand and supply, demand and supply. So you just need to get this thing right. Like if something as basic as demand function, I mean demand model, you can't get it right. Like it's very difficult. Else I just start with that A plus BP is equals to, I hope I'm making sense. Maybe Marujoju. Are we together? So and I say A plus BP, like our quantity demand is A plus BP, then where this our B is actually less than zero. You get, and it aids in identifying causal relationship. Yes, it helps us know the relationship that exists between which of them variables. So we have the charts, we have the graph, and we have table in economics. So all of these listed items, they help and they are essential for data presentation. Without charts, without graphs, without table, everything just be jam packed. 50 students in the class are doing this, then you just start blabbing, and some people that have horrible handwriting. By the time they write everything together, even to understand it, very difficult. But if you are to draw a graph, or you are to interpret that information using charts, by the time you draw it, like by the time you draw it correctly, it's not even just about by the time you draw it correctly, we'll be able to get that, oh, when the price of this thing was 50 naira, this person got 100, and when the price increased to 200, baba got 10. You get, than you jam packing everything, like you writing it literally. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, so table shows numerical data, yes, and table has the column and the row. So how I get to understand the column and the row, maybe at some point in your class You've been taught column and the row. You'll be asked to identify what the row is. You'll be asked to identify which is the column. So one way I actually get got to understand that very well is, when you're like when you're both, when you're moving, like when you're rolling something, you roll it horizontally now. Like you move like this. I wish you can see my hand demonstrate my hand demonstration, like my gesture now. Like you roll it horizontally. So that horizontal line, that horizontal data, that is your row. And the vertical one is the column. I hope we are together. So when you talk about charts, okay, it visualize trends and comparison. Yes. Okay, when the price was, we have market demand schedule, we have individual demand schedule too. So we have Victoria, we have Daniel. When this item was at this price, Daniel got this, Victoria got this. Like you could like you'll be able to compare. I hope I'm making sense and I'm not just talking. Okay. So using visual tools for economic interpretation. One, it's improve understanding of economic phenomena. Yes. It, okay. Sorry. Yes, it's improve understanding. Yes, you'll be able to relate well with it. You'll be able to digest it. And it's okay, aid in communication of finding. Oh, by the time you are told that 50 students 50 students wrote a test and 20 scored this, 10 did this, Kinikon did that one. By the time you gather all of that information that you'll be given, and then you now prepare your table, you now draw a table. Eventually, your own table, your total was now 48. You get. It will be easy for you to trace it down that, okay, they said this number of students scored this mark. Where am I getting wrong? This number of students got this mark. Oh, I got it wrong at this point. So it helps your communication, and when you make errors, it makes correcting yourself or doing your findings, or when you want to create data about something, it makes it easier. Again, support decision making in policy and business. Yes, it helps decision making. You'll be able to, by the time you check the chart, by the time you check your graph, you'll be able to say, at this point, at this level, or at this price, was when the market break even. When you talk about market breaking even, that's when your quantity demanded, and the quantity supplied is equals to quantity demanded. Or you be like, this is where we have excess demand, oh, this is where we have excess supply, oh. Then you know how you adjust. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, thank you. I guess I should summarize this whole class again. So today we talked about economic system, and I hope we've been able to communicate well on that, and we digest that well. And we talk about the different economic system we have. I said we have the market, we have the planned, we have the mixed, and we have the planned market and mixed. Sorry. I hope you can still remember the other names I called them. I said this market economy could also be called the capitalist, and this planned economy could be the socialist, can also be called the socialist, or you call it command economy. And you talk about mixed economy, it can also be called mixed market economy. And talk about the market economy. Okay, private ownership of resources, it is profit motive, profit oriented, competition. Yes, there are a lot of buyers and sellers, and give examples of countries that practice market economy. I hope I'm making sense, and I'm not rushing or inaudible. I hope I'm audible enough. And we talk about the planned economy too. We talk about the characteristics. It is government ownership. Yes, basically it's owned by government. Central planning authority, limited consumer choice. Yes, That was when I talk about the main focus of planned economy, which is the socialism or the socialist economy, is that the government they invest in what benefits the society at large, not just some set of consumer or some set of people's interest. And then we gave example of countries that practice the planned economy. We have the North Korea and Cuba. I hope I'm making sense. Then we move to the mixed economy. We discuss the characteristics too. Persistence of private and public sector. Yes, that means there's private and there's public sector. The government and private. And there's government intervention for social welfare. That's when I was like, okay, the basic reason there's government intervention is to protect consumer from being exploited. I hope you remember that part too. And then I give the example: we have the France, we have India, and the comparison. That's when I was explaining and I broke it down that okay, in terms of efficiency, things that was like okay, my own thing, like your thing and our thing is different. There's a way you treat something that is your thing, and there's a way you treat things that is our thing as human. I hope you can relate to that. And mixed economy, because there is the presence of both private and public, both government and individuals. So is the next that will be more efficient than planned economy because it's government. People has bad attitude to work, people could neglect to work. Compared to market and mixed economy, the government the planned economy or the socialist is not as efficient as the rest. And equity, I talk about planned economy, yes, because we have government as the one in charge, so they try to the social welfare and the likes, mixed economy. We have the presence of the public and the private, and we have the market, that's the capitalist. I don't think we're you get, and I hope you remember the example. I talk about innovation. Yes, market tops it because it's your business, your private business. So of course you'll be more creative, you invent more, you do more researches and the likes. Then mixed economy comes second. Then we talk about the planned economy, which is the socialist, like basically the government. Then we talk about the tools of economic analysis, and I talk about tools being instruments that we use in analyzing economic stuff. So the economy at large, sorry. So the tools of economic analysis, it's used to understand and predict economic behavior. It includes models, data, and statistical tools. I talk about models and I make use of example of a mannequin. And I said they're abstract. They actually represent the real world system. I hope we are together. Mathematical models in economics. Yes, I made example of okay demand and supply. I stated the law and I said the law tells us only the quantity. Like it didn't tell us how much um the demand is affected by price. That's how much. But when you use the mathematical models, it tells us how much you get. I hope you remember that too. And it's used for prediction and policy formulation. Then we'll talk about graphical tools in economics. We talk about graphs and talk about how it shows relationship between variables. And I explain what variables are. I hope you still remember. I said variables are not constant. There are quantities that changes over time. They change. The price, that was when I made an example of the price you bought a bag of rice today, a cup of rice today might not be the same next week. The price you bought a bag of beans might not be the same. Might not be the same always you get. So that's very like everything varies. They will talk about line, talk about bar chart, and talk about pie chart. And I said after this class you can go get a pictorial um knowledge of this stuff. Okay, statistical tools in economics. We have the descriptive statistics, and then we talk about media mode. Explain what mean is like. I said mean is actually the average of Number, the average of items, the average of whatever you're giving is mean. And we are talking about median. I'm talking about the middle item. We are talking about the middle number. And I said before you can deal with the median, you have to arrange it in order. Either you're arranging it in ascending order or arranging it in descending order. When you talk about the mode, you're talking about the most, the one that appears the most. And then I talk about the hypothesis testing. Then I was like, when I actually said literal meaning of hypothesis, I was like, he's an educated guess that can be tested. And then I said hypothesis testing is a statistical method that is used to make informed decision based on samples of data. Regression analysis, we said, is a statistical method that shows the relationship between two or more variables. I hope you remember that too. Then we move to endogenous versus exogenous variables. These are types of variables. And I talk about endo being in. And here it's variables that is explained within the model. That's when I gave the example of my quantity demanded. When I gave quantity demanded is 200 minus 5p, whatever. Or I said quantity demanded is equals to. I hope I'm not just rapping. No, it's equals to 200 minus 5p equals 0.5. Wide. I was like, okay, in this situation, our quantity demanded depends on the price. So yeah, the quantity demanded is the endogenous variable, and what tells us if a variable is endogenous or exogenous is actually what we are studying. We don't just assume. It could change. You get. So, I hope you're together. And then we talk about the importance of variable classification. It helps in building accurate models, aids in identifying causal relationship. Yes, we don't just assume that okay, this is the accurate model. Then I talk about okay how I get to understand how I got to understand the model demand model. And I was like, okay, and I felt like okay, we go front and back, we go to and fro with demand and supply, basically. So understanding the basics, like go, like the demand model. Then I explained that. I hope you remember. And then we talk about charts, graph, and tables in economics. And all three of these are essential for data presentation. Yes. And I was like, okay, they are giving 50 students did this, them this number of students did that. And then I was like, okay, even people with terrible handwriting or you are just bombarded with a lot of informations, like everything is just looking tattered, frustrating and everything. But with the help of graph, with the help of table, it breaks everything down, makes the work easier, makes it even looks more presentable and approachable. You get. Then I talk about table, and I was like, okay, table has the row and the column. I was like, okay, at some point, I'm sure when we were taught in class, you were asked to identify your row and your column, and I was like, okay, row, like when you're rolling something, you roll it horizontally. So the horizontal data, the horizontal information in your table is the row, while the vertical is the column. Then we move to charts like okay, visual trends and comparison. And you just need to know that okay, when I give example of individual demand schedule and market demand schedule, where you have okay, Victoria and Daniel, okay, you pick this when this price or when this good was at this price, Victoria got this, Daniel got this, you could compare. It helps. And then using visual tools for economic interpretation. It improve it improve understanding of economic phenomena, aids in communication of findings, I explained that too, and supports decision making in policy and business. Okay, so is there any question?